What the hell is going on in Store 5? Darren Sloane's voice cut through the boardroom like a whip. The other execs looked down at their notes, avoiding his eyes. A silence dragged before his assistant finally spoke. It's the lowest performing cafe in the chain, sir. Customer complaints, staff turnover, inventory losses. The district manager says it's a staffing issue, low applicant pool. Darren leaned back in his chair, jaw clenched. He'd bought the cafe chain 8 years ago when it had just 2 locations. Now it had 10 across the state. He used to know every store, every employee. But growth had changed things. Meetings replaced visits. Data replaced faces. Anyone been there lately? He asked. No one spoke. Darren stood. I'll go. Sir? His assistant blinked. You mean I'll go as a trainee? No one there knows me personally. I've never stepped foot in that location. It's a corporate-run spot, right? A nod. Good. Set it up. 3 days later, Darren stood in the alley behind Store 5, wearing a faded gray t-shirt, dark jeans, and a ball cap pulled low. His beard was longer than usual, and he'd ditched his watch. The ID badge clipped to his chest read, Dave Simmons trainee. Inside, the place smelled like burnt toast and old mop water. The air was stuffy. A bored-looking manager in her early 40s with a tight ponytail and a clipboard gave him a once-over and barely smiled. Dave, right? I'm Paula. Just try not to get in the way. We're slammed. She waved toward the counter, where 2 workers rushed to fill orders. A third was sweeping near the back, head down, moving slow but thorough. She looked like she might be early 20s, wiry frame, oversized polo shirt swallowing her. That's Kira, Paula said. She's been here a while. Keeps to herself. Don't bother trying to chat. She won't last. Why not? Darren asked casually. Paula scoffed. She's always tired. Always hungry. I think she's got some drama going on outside of work. Not my problem, though. Darren frowned but said nothing. His first few hours were eye-opening. The kitchen was understocked. The coffee machine sputtered. The freezer door didn't close all the way. Customers waited too long. One guy stormed out after getting the wrong order twice. Paula didn't even look up. Around noon, Darren was sweeping the back near the break area. Kira sat on a crate, peeling the lid off a leftover soup container. He hesitated, then swept closer. Is that today's soup? He asked. She looked up, startled. Oh, yeah. They were gonna toss it. You eat here often? Kira gave a tired laugh. Every day. Darren stopped sweeping. Every day. Yeah, she said, not looking up. Can't afford groceries most weeks. Rent's brutal. This place might suck, but at least I can eat. He stared at her. She kept eating, eyes on the soup like it was gold. He felt his throat tighten. He walked back to the front, hands shaking slightly. Later, while restocking napkins, he caught Paula chewing out the guy on register for smiling too much. The kid looked like he wanted to disappear. Darren pulled him aside after Paula walked off. You all right? The kid Eli, according to his tag, nodded quickly. That's just how she is. I need the job. By the end of the day, Darren had seen enough to know why the store was failing. The staff wasn't lazy. They were exhausted, unsupported, and afraid. The only thing keeping the place running was the sheer grit of a few underpaid workers doing their best. That night, he sat in his car outside the cafe and stared at the glowing sign above the windows. His chest was heavy. He'd built this company to help people, create jobs, make something real. Instead, he'd created this. He rubbed his face and whispered to himself, what the hell happened while I wasn't looking? Tomorrow he was coming back, and he was going to start digging deeper. By the time Darren walked back into the cafe the next morning, the sun hadn't finished rising. The sky was a dull slate blue, and the parking lot was nearly empty. Inside, the lights were on but dim. Kira was already there, wiping down tables with slow, deliberate movements. She didn't notice him at first. He hung his coat in the back and grabbed a cleaning rag from under the sink. As he joined her near the front window, she looked up, surprised. "You're early," she said. "Couldn't sleep." She gave a tired nod, then went back to wiping. Darren didn't press. He worked beside her in silence until Paula walked in 30 minutes later, phone pressed to her ear, muttering something about payroll files being a disaster. Darren kept his head down but listened. Her voice was clipped, annoyed. She barked instructions at someone on the other end before hanging up and dropping her bag behind the register. "Let's move, people. Trucks coming in an hour, and I don't want pallets sitting out back all day." By 7:30, the cafe was filling up. The morning rush hit hard. The espresso machine jammed once, and the receipt printer ran out of paper mid-order. Darren stepped in to help Eli with drinks. The kid was fast, hands steady, but his eyes flicked to the clock every few minutes. "You got somewhere to be?" Darren asked quietly as he handed off a cappuccino. "My class starts at 10, Eli said. "I told Paula I needed to leave by 9:30, but she already gave me a look." "You in school full-time?" "Yeah, this job pays rent. Everything else I cover with loan money." He gave a short laugh, then added, "Assuming I can keep both going." Darren opened his mouth to ask more, but Paula stormed over. "Eli, that caramel latte was wrong. Again. The guy asked for almond milk. I used almond." "You're not listening. You're too distracted. Go stock the fridge before you screw something else up." Eli hesitated, then walked off without a word. Darren turned back to the espresso machine, jaw tight. By mid-morning, the delivery truck rolled in. The driver, a man in his 50s with a clipboard and a limp, knocked on the side door. Paula didn't move. "Kira, get that." Kira glanced up from the register, then back at Paula. "I'm the only one on the floor. I said get it. Dave can cover." Darren moved toward the register, but Kira was already pulling off her apron. She looked at him once, then disappeared into the back. The line grew. Darren fumbled with the POS system. Paula hadn't trained him on it, and the customer at the front, a woman in her 60s with a stroller, tapped her card impatiently. "You guys always this slow?" Darren tried to apologize, but the woman shook her head and walked out. The next customer stepped up, but Paula shoved Darren aside. "Back to dishes," she snapped. "You're not ready for this." He bit his tongue and returned to the sink. At the back, Kira was just returning with 2 crates of milk. Her sleeves were damp, and her hands were red from the cold. "You good?" he asked. She gave him a tired look. "He always makes me unload, even when it's raining." Brad, the district manager. "He says I'm the only one who doesn't complain." Darren's brows pulled together. "When's he in next?" "Tomorrow. Inventory check." That night, Darren stayed after closing to mop the kitchen. Kira lingered to finish closing the register. Eli had already left, and Paula was in the office with the door closed. He waited until the last receipt printed, then asked, "You ever think about quitting?" Kira glanced at him. "Every week." "So why don't you?" She hesitated, then said, "I have a sister. She's 12. We live together. If I miss rent, we're done. So I stay." Darren stood there, mop handle in hand, the weight of her answer settling like concrete in his chest. The next morning, he arrived before open again. Paula was already there, arguing on the phone about a scheduling app. She hung up, muttering something about idiots who can't read a shift chart, then turned to Darren. "You're on prep. Don't mess it up." He headed to the kitchen. The prep area was barely stocked. Half the produce was wilted. A box of bread had mold. He took photos quietly, Then he checked the schedule posted on the break room wall. Kira was scheduled for 8 days straight. Eli was listed for 6 shifts that overlapped with his school hours. A third employee, someone named Maya, had been scratched out and replaced with cover TBD. He stepped out to find Paula leaning against the front counter, sipping a soda. "Hey," he said, keeping his voice casual. "You ever talk to the team about their schedules?" "Why would I? They've got some conflicts." Eli's got class. "Kira's been working non-stop." Paula rolled her eyes. "You knew guys always want to play hero. Listen, they know what they signed up for." "I'm not running a daycare." Darren held her gaze. "You think this is sustainable?" She scoffed. "Look, if they don't like it, they can leave. I've got resumes on file. People talk tough, but no one's walking away from a paycheck." He walked away before he said something he couldn't take back. That afternoon, Brad arrived. He was in his early 40s with a pressed shirt and polished shoes. He didn't greet the team, just walked straight into the back and started checking the inventory sheets. Paula followed him, whispering updates and excuses. Darren stayed on the floor, refilling the condiment station. He watched as Brad finally came out to the counter, looking around with a frown. "You call this clean?" he asked Paula. "We're short-staffed. I told you, I don't care. The floor's sticky. The glass is streaked. And the back smells like old grease." Kira stood nearby, wiping down a table. Brad looked at her. You're on closing shifts, yeah." She nodded. "You're wiping with that rag? That's disgusting. You're spreading bacteria." "It's the only clean one left," she said. Brad turned to Paula. "Why's there only one? Ask corporate. They cut our supply order." Brad didn't answer. He turned back to Kira. "You're not doing yourself any favors, you know? Sloppy work makes you look replaceable." She didn't respond. Darren walked over, jaw tight. "She's been here every day this week. What exactly are you expecting from her?" Brad looked him up and down. "Who are you?" "Just a trainee," Darren said. "One who knows what burnout looks like." Brad turned to Paula. "Get a handle on this, or I'll find someone who can." Then he walked out. Darren's hands were clenched as he returned to the back. Kira was stuffing her apron into her locker, eyes glassy. "I'm done," she said. He stepped forward. "Don't. Not yet." She looked at him. "Why? So I can keep being treated like garbage?" He didn't have an answer. Not one he could give yet. That night, after the cafe closed and everyone had gone home, Darren unlocked the office door. He sat at the desk, turned on the old desktop, and opened the scheduling software. He spent 2 hours combing through the last 3 months' shifts, hours payroll logs. What he found made his stomach turn. Paula had clocked herself for hours she never worked, dozens of times. In one case, she was listed as working a double shift while out of town, according to a social media post with a timestamp. He took screenshots, saved them. Then he opened the security footage folder. He didn't need to watch long. There she was signing out early, leaving the team to close. There she was again berating Eli for a mistake she made, and again yelling at Kira while texting. He leaned back in the chair, heart racing. Tomorrow he was going to end this, and they were going to see who he really was. The next morning, Darren arrived before sunrise again, this time with a plan and a different kind of weight on his shoulders. The store's exterior lights flickered against the gray sky as he unlocked the side entrance with the spare key Paula always left taped under the supply shelf, something he'd noticed 2 days earlier. Inside, the air was still and quiet, but his mind wasn't. He walked straight to the office and waited. By 6:45, Paula walked in carrying a pastry bag and an iced drink. She didn't notice him right away until she flipped the light switch and saw him sitting in the chair she usually occupied. Her face twitched. "What are you doing in here?" He stood slowly. "I'm Darren Sloane. I own this company." She stared at him, blinking fast. "You're what?" "I've been undercover here for the past 4 days. Watching, listening, working the floor." Paula's eyes darted toward the hallway. "Is this a joke? You can't just... You've been clocking hours you didn't work, rerouting inventory, and leaving the team to close without supervision. And that's the least of it." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Her hand tightened around the drink. "I've got security footage and payroll records," he added. "I've already looped in corporate HR. They'll be here later this morning." Still, she didn't say a word. "You're done here." His voice was quiet but firm. "Gather your things and leave now. I won't allow another shift under your watch." For a second, she didn't move. Then, without a word, she set her drink on the desk and walked out. Darren stood still for a moment, breathing through the tension that hung in the air like static. Then he stepped out into the front of the cafe. Kira and Eli were both already working, Eli restocking the pastry case, Kira managing the early customer line alone. She glanced at him, confused. "Where's Paula?" she asked. "Gone," he said. "She won't be coming back." Kira's eyes widened slightly, but she didn't speak. "Can you both join me for a few minutes?" "In the back." They nodded. He led them to the prep area and pulled 2 crates together for seats. He remained standing. "I haven't been honest with you," he said. "My name's not Dave. It's Darren. I run the company. I came here because I needed to understand why this store was falling apart." Neither of them spoke at first. "You're the owner?" Eli said finally. "I started this company in a garage with 2 waffle irons and a folding table. It used to mean something to me. Then I got busy with expansion and forgot what it felt like to stand in your shoes." Kira shifted her weight but stayed quiet. "I've watched how hard you both work, how you carry this place despite everything stacked against you. You've dealt with more than anyone should in a job like this." Eli looked down at his hands. "We tried complaining. No one ever answered." "I know." Darren nodded. "That ends today." He turned to Kira. "I owe you a personal apology. No one should be working 8 days in a row, especially not under someone who doesn't care if you eat or sleep. You've carried more weight than your title should require." Her jaw tightened. "I didn't expect anyone to notice." "I noticed, and I'm not letting it slide." Eli raised his eyes. "Is anything actually going to change?" Darren met his gaze. "You tell me what needs to." They stared at him in silence. Then Kira spoke. "The freezer door doesn't shut. I've been propping it with a chair for weeks. We're losing product daily." Eli added, "The espresso grinder's off level. It's been messing with the shots. We keep getting complaints, but no one's replaced it." Kira looked at him again. "We need more people. It's not sustainable with 3 of us." Darren took out a notepad and wrote each point down. "Anything else?" They hesitated. Eli finally said, "The way we're talked to, by managers, by corporate. It's like we're disposable." Darren nodded slowly. "Noted. I'll be here all day today to keep things running. Corporate's sending someone to interview for a new manager this afternoon. In the meantime, I want both of you to take a real break. 20 minutes, uninterrupted. I'll cover the floor." Kira raised an eyebrow. "You know how to run the register?" He smiled. "I wrote the first version of the menu by hand. I think I can figure it out." She didn't laugh, but the corner of her mouth twitched just for a second. Then she turned and walked toward the back room, shoulders straighter than they'd been all week. Darren stepped behind the counter, tied an apron around his waist, and watched as the next wave of customers filed in. He moved fast. The register still gave him trouble. The layout had changed since he last designed it, but he found his rhythm. When the line slowed, he wiped down the counter and restocked the lids. A woman in her 30s approached the counter, glancing around. "Is the girl with the braids not working today?" she asked. Kira? She just stepped off for a break, Darren said. She's the only one who gets my order right. She remembers my name every time. He nodded. She's one of the best we've got. Tell her Marcy says hi. I will. By mid-morning, corporate HR arrived. Darren led them to the office, laid out the files he'd compiled, and gave a clear account of what he'd seen. There was no hesitation. Paula's termination was formalized on the spot, and her access was revoked from all systems. They also began auditing other stores overseen by Brad. Darren asked, "Can I see his district reports?" The HR lead, a woman named Julia, pulled them up on her tablet. Darren scanned them quickly. Too polished, he said. No variation month to month. Either he's fudging numbers or he's not doing inspections. Julia nodded. We'll dig in. By early afternoon, a candidate arrived to interview for the store manager position. She was in her late 20s, soft-spoken but focused, with experience managing a similar cafe in a nearby city that had recently closed. Darren interviewed her personally in the back office while Kira and Eli ran the front. What would you do if you saw your team burning out? He asked. I'd step in, she said. No job is worth someone's health. If they're drowning, we fix the system, not blame the people. He leaned back in his chair. You're hired. If you want it. She nodded. Absolutely. He walked her out to the front and introduced her to the team. This is Lindsay. She's your new store manager, effective immediately. Eli shook her hand. Kira gave a quiet nod. I'm not here to replace anyone's work ethic, Lindsay said. I'm here to support it. Later that day, Darren pulled Kira aside again. I want to offer you something, he said. A paid training program. We're building a leadership development track. You'd be one of the first. She blinked. I didn't finish school. You don't need a degree to lead. You just need what you already have: resilience, awareness, and guts. She didn't answer right away. He gave her space. I'll think about it, she said finally. That's all I ask. As the day wound down and the sun dipped behind the trees outside, Darren stepped out from behind the counter and watched the cafe from the corner. The energy had shifted. Customers smiled. The team moved with less tension. It wasn't perfect, but it was alive. He turned to leave, slipping out the side door without fanfare. As he walked toward his car, his phone buzzed. A message from Julia. Brad's conduct under review. We'll update soon. He pocketed the phone and stood still for a moment, looking back at the cafe. He'd come looking for answers. What he found was a reminder. A business isn't built on systems or slogans. It's built on people. And if you forget that, you lose everything. Tomorrow he'd visit another store. But tonight he'd remember this one. 2 weeks after Paula's removal, the cafe felt different, but Darren knew better than to assume everything had changed. A toxic environment doesn't evaporate overnight. It lingers in the air, in habits, in silence. He returned on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, not undercover this time, but not in a suit either. Just jeans, a rain jacket, and a quiet presence. When he walked through the front door, Lindsay was on the floor, directing a repair tech who was finally replacing the espresso grinder. She looked up briefly, then nodded toward the back. Darren slipped behind the counter and into the office without drawing attention. Inside, the walls were bare. Paula's cluttered corkboard had been taken down. The only thing on the desk was a neat stack of shift schedules and a clipboard of maintenance logs. Lindsay joined him a few minutes later, shaking the rain from her sleeves. You picked a good day to come, she said. No major breakdowns. No screaming customers. No one called out. That's a start. She leaned against the doorframe. I'm not here for credit. I just want to tell you what's still broken. Darren gestured to the chair. Tell me everything. Saturday we're running with 4 people, including me. Scheduling is tight. I've split shifts into shorter blocks so no one burns out, but that means we're stretched thin during transitions. You need another hire. I need two. One solid opener and someone flexible who can float. I've got one application I like, but she's 17 and still in school. I'm not sure if she can handle the floor on weekends. Hire her. Give her limited hours. See how she handles it. Lindsay nodded. Second thing, Kira's still refusing extra hours. I offered her a raise and a title, but she's hesitant. She say why? Not directly. I think she's used to being ignored. She doesn't trust that it's safe to step forward. Darren looked down at the desk. She has every reason to feel that way. She's been solid, though. Never late. Never cuts corners. I just don't want to push. I'll talk to her. Lindsay stood. One more thing. Eli got into a scholarship program. He needs his schedule adjusted for a few weeks while he handles interviews and prep work. Darren didn't hesitate. Make it happen. As Lindsay returned to the front, Darren stepped into the break area. Kira stood at the back sink, sleeves pushed up, scrubbing the tea urns. He waited until she finished and started drying her hands. You always volunteer for the worst jobs? He asked. Someone has to. He nodded toward the hallway. Got a few minutes? She followed him back to the office and sat quietly in the same chair Lindsay had just left. He stayed standing, leaning against the desk. I heard you turned down the leadership offer. She glanced toward the open door. I'm not trying to be rude. I don't think I'm ready. You've been holding this place together for months. You're already leading, whether there's a title or not. She shook her head. Titles don't protect people. I've seen how fast things change. One bad manager, and everything flips. He crossed his arms. I get that, and I don't want you to take anything you're not comfortable with. But I also don't want fear to keep you small. She looked up, eyes steady. Small feels safer. Maybe, but it's not where you belong. She didn't answer. He gave her space. He walked to the file drawer and pulled out a sealed envelope from the second folder. This is a scholarship. Internal. Covers full tuition for a management certification program we're launching. It's designed for people already in the field. She stared at the envelope. You're giving this to me? I'm offering it. Whether you say yes now or later is up to you. But I want you to know it's real. No strings. No catch. She didn't take it. Not yet. But she didn't walk away either. After she left, Darren returned to the floor. The tech had just finished installing the new grinder. Eli was calibrating the doses, testing espresso shots while chatting with a customer in a blazer who clearly came in for more than just coffee. Darren waited until the customer left, then approached him. Heard about the scholarship. Congrats. Eli beamed. Thanks. I didn't think I'd get it. There were like hundreds of applicants. You earned it. Lindsay's adjusting your schedule so you can focus on prep. I appreciate that, Eli said. It means a lot, especially after everything that went down. How's it feel now? Eli glanced around. Quieter. Better. People actually talk to each other. Lindsay's no joke, she keeps us moving. But she listens. It's different. Darren nodded. That's the goal. He stayed the rest of the afternoon not as a boss but as a presence. He helped box pastries, filled out inventory checklists, and tested the new till system Lindsay had requested. No one treated him like a visitor. That was the first real sign of progress. By closing, the rain had stopped. The crew cleaned up efficiently. No one snapped. No one dragged. When the last customer left, Darren stayed behind to help with the final sweep. Kira volunteered to lock up. Lindsay handed her the keys without hesitation. See you tomorrow, she said. Early, Kira replied. As they left, Darren held the door open and watched the last light turn off inside. Lindsay stood at the curb, waiting for her ride. "You did good," he said. "I'm just getting started." He walked to his car without another word. The street was quiet, the cafe dark but not lifeless. The next day he didn't return. He didn't need to. The store would never be perfect. No business ever is. But it was no longer a place where silence meant survival, where exhaustion was ignored, or where effort went unseen. That part of the story was over, and that was enough.